The last point I'd like to cover relates to theological issues. And what I want to focus on here is something I mentioned a few videos ago, and that was the contrast between the Jesus of history and the Christ of faith. Something I don't think has been dealt with sufficiently has been a distinction between different kinds of historical writings. They can include issues of historical fact, that is, who did what, where, and when. And on the other hand, moral issues, questions of how should we live, and then issues relating to salvation, that is, finding ultimate meaning and fulfillment. The challenge is that an historian can determine matters of historical fact, and they can also provide a good basis for reflection on moral issues and matters of salvation. But does the factual historian have the competence to pass judgment on salvation and moral issues? To put the point more briefly, a critical historian can be very skilled at recovering the Jesus of history, but they may not be so skilled as to determining the Christ of faith or dealing with the underlying principles of the Christian faith. That much may be so, but I'd also say that someone dedicated to religion and someone competent in discerning the Christ of faith can fall victim to a fundamentalist approach to Scripture, and that is if they're not well versed in the methods of critical history. What we see with people like that is a tendency to not view the Jesus of history as the subject of scientific or critical investigation, but rather as the object of belief or unbelief. In fact, what I've found is that many people on the fundamentalist side of Christianity view the search for the historical Jesus as an exercise in systematic infidelity. What we have then are the extremes of fundamentalism on the one hand and faithless rationalism on the other. These are two poles, two extremes of the spectrum, between which we find a lot of imbalanced Christologies, which unfortunately have multiplied in the 20th and 21st centuries. What do we need then? Instead of imbalance, we need people who are both religious people of faith, people who are sincerely committed to Christ, the Christ they worship, but also people who are familiar with the methods of critical analysis and who are committed to applying those methods to their theology. And if you want a great example of that commitment of both faith and critical history, I urge you to read the work of Cardinal St. John Henry Newman. People like that are aware that yes, they need critical history, but they are also mindful of the fact that the New Testament was not written as a dry historical record, but it was written by people of faith and addressed to other people of faith. In addition, if they are both historically and religiously conscious, they are mindful that the New Testament was written with the vocabulary and mindset of a particular time, and it was written, expressed in a way that was intelligible at that time. However, expressing that message in terms that make sense today requires a new search for both the Christ of faith and the Jesus of history. In this search, I think what is very important is being able to distinguish the things that are open to revision and change and those things that are permanent achievements. What is a permanent achievement is discovered by going through the evidence and discerning what is authentically Christian. That is, what are the core beliefs about the person of Jesus? What is open to change are the ways that those beliefs are expressed, the language, the philosophical concepts, and other ways used to express the mystery of Christ in limited human language. To sum up this balanced approach, I'd like to use a direct quote from Bernard Lonergan. He says that in our time of hermeneutics and history, of psychology and critical philosophy, there is an exigence for further development. There are windows to be opened and fresh air to be let in. It will not, I am convinced, dissolve the solid achievement of the past. It will, I hope, put that achievement on a secure base and enrich it with fuller content. In other words, what Lonergan is saying is that we have our traditional beliefs. We have what has been passed on to us for centuries about Jesus. And that the way that we use contemporary scholarship, history, philosophy, critical reading of the Bible, other fields, that these are there not to destroy our faith in Jesus, but to fulfill it. That is to take that same faith in Jesus Christ and express that way in new words, new ways that make sense and are credible today. This concludes my series on Christology. I hope that you found it worthwhile. In the spirit of Bernard Lonergan's reflections, I think that we have a lot of work to do, especially in terms of balancing and reconciling faith and tradition with modern scholarship and research. In my opinion, this balance won't be achieved by either of the extremes of rationalism or fundamentalism, but instead it will be realized through the higher viewpoint promoted by the First Vatican Council, that when human reason operates diligently and carefully with the guidance of faith, we can in fact come to an understanding of the mystery of Jesus Christ that may be minimal, but is immensely fruitful. Thank you, goodbye, and God bless.